Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially healthcare. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
He's at war with woke.
Joe Concha
thinks liberals are a joke.
Joe Concha.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
All right, happy Friday night. Yes, I am the aforementioned Joe Concha. This is the Joe Concha Show. And boy, what a great Friday night it is, because Don Lemon got arrested. Oh, those four words just roll right off the tongue, don't they? And the reason why he got arrested is because he violated two federal acts, the FACE Act and the KKK Act. What are those? Basically, I'm not going to get into the legal mumbo jumbo. I have a mumbo jumbo guy coming up later, one of the best, and that is Greg Jarrett of Fox News, to break this whole case down. But in very layman's terms, just for the guy or gal driving right now or listening on an Alexa on your sofa on a Friday night, it basically means you cannot go into a house of worship under the guise of the First Amendment and start harassing people. That's it. And it's a good law. And the fact that Don Lemon was not a journalist here as he purports himself to be. I was just there to cover a news story. No, dude, you literally handed out donuts and coffee to these provocateurs, these agitators. Don't call them protesters. They went in there. They harassed the pastor. They got up in the face of screaming kids who were completely traumatized because they didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if these were terrorists in there to shoot their parents. And then these people got up in their faces and said, your parents are Nazis. And this is the house of the devil, like yelling all this stuff. Like, this is not like a peaceful protest anymore, right? This was anarchy, and there should be consequences for it. Several people have been arrested already, and now Lemon follows as well. And here, again, did Cronkite or Mudd or Brinkley or Bernard Shaw, name a great journalist, Mike Wallace, ever hand out donuts and coffee to a mob before they stormed a church? Because I'm pretty sure that didn't happen. Those were journalists. Don Lemon is anything but that. He is an activist, and a poor one at that. This is cut 15. Go.
Lemon is on the front lines right now.
Front lines.
Follow Don Lemon. He ain't on CNN no more, so he right here in the front line.
Independent, yeah.
Tell him to come get some coffee.
Get
some coffee.
Get some coffee for y'all.
And donuts.
And donuts. And he ain't talking about police.
You want some coffee?
He wants some coffee. Don Lemon. I trust Don Lemon coffee.
You want some coffee?
He ain't finna poison.
I love some coffee. Thank you, Don. Great to see you here. Thank you. Perfect.
What a nice guy, huh? I call that Exhibit A if I'm a lawyer right now in this case, because Lemon has said that I didn't know it was going to happen. I didn't know these people. Sure. So Don Lemon, in his nice estate on Oyster Bay, Long Island, New York, a mansion, decides to fly out to Minneapolis in sub-zero weather. And of the thousands of churches, right, of all the gin joints in all the world, the quote Casablanca, yeah, of all the churches in all of Minnesota, Don Lemon had the Jedi-like ability to find the one church where agitators, provocateurs, maniacs were going to storm. Or maybe, I don't know, he was given a heads up by the organizers and they said, all right, we're going to do this at this time, on this day, at this church. He flew out there, met them, bought them things before they went in, like coffee and donuts. Then he interviews the head of this so-called protest and gives her a big smooch on the cheek at the end of the interview. Because, again, that's exactly what Cronkite and Wallace and Brinkley and Mudd would have done. Those sort of journalists, if given the opportunity, when covering a story, literally kiss the person who's about to break the law. Anyway, let's go to cut 16, because this is Don Lemon then explaining on a podcast afterwards exactly what happened that day and who was really at fault. You're going to love this. Cut number 16, go.
And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that, it's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled. And that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy.
What? He said white supremacy? Were the parishioners or white supremacists were parishioners at that church in Minneapolis? They were people just reading the Bible, learning about God, doing what they do every Sunday. Their kids are down in Sunday school during church. And he's talking about white supremacy and entitlement. This person, you know what? He may get off, not because he didn't break the law. He may get off on the basis of an insanity plea. I mean, that's Don Lemon for you. And again, CNN employed this freak for 17 years, had him on in prime time, had him actually moderate presidential debates that they had on there in the primaries. Was one of their biggest stars, they would say. And then they would unleash him on New Year's Eve, where he would get hammered every New Year's Eve. He even got a piercing live on TV at one point, and just thought that was the greatest thing ever. Boy, everybody loves drunk Don Lemon. Not everybody. So it's always been about narcissism. It's always been about look at me and seeking attention. That's what Don Lemon is. He is anything but a journalist. That's certainly for sure. Anyway, well, here is cut 17. And I love this attorney, Mike Davis, who went on Benny Johnson's podcast. And here's what he had to say to CNN, and then explains why the First Amendment does not apply in this case as Don Lemon thinks it does. Cut number 17, go.
Two quick breaking pieces of news. One from CNN. So CNN is bitching and mewling and complaining online, saying the FBI arrested a former CNN colleague, Don Lemon. CNN fired Don Lemon after demoting him multiple times, raises profoundly concerning questions about the press freedom and the First Amendment. The Department of Justice already failed twice to arrest, warrant Don Lemon, several other journalists in Minnesota. Chief judge in Minnesota said there's no evidence, blah, blah, blah. The First Amendment in the United States protects journalists who bear witness in news to events that unfold, ensuring that they can report freely on the public interest. The DOJ's attempt to violate those rights are unacceptable. We'll be following it closely. Your response to CNN.
So CNN, let me be clear, you. You do not have a First Amendment right to storm a church and scare the hell out of the parishioners and do it on TV and show zero remorse, right? That is a federal crime. It's several federal crimes. It's the FACE Act and it's the Klan Act. And as a journalist, you don't have license to commit crimes. You don't have license to ignore the law. So CNN, again, you.
All right. Not one, but two FUs. Thank you, Mike Davis. Well, of course, then CNN is going to roll out the, what did Sean Hannity always used to call him? Jeff Zucker's stenographer, right? The eunuch, I believe Tucker Carlson used to call him. If you want to know what eunuch means, you could Google that during the commercial break, but it ain't pretty in any way, shape, or form. That's for sure. So CNN, of course, says, okay, who can we roll out here, literally, to defend Don Lemon in this case and blame, I don't know, Donald Trump, who's the one guy who we can count on to do this without any remorse or apology whatsoever? Well, it's Brian Stelter, of course. Cut number 14, go.
But again, more recently, Trump has made no secret of his disdain for Lemon. And Lemon, of course, has been harshly critical of President Trump for many years as well. So he is a Trump foe. And this is another example of the administration targeting a Trump foe. A friend of Lemon's tells me, as Kara just said, he did spend the night in jail. He's still in custody. His friends don't seem to know what the charges are yet. But the pressure from the right to take this action was really, really severe. And you're going to see some people, on the MAGA right who are going to cheer this.
Wait a minute. His friends don't know what the charges are? The charges? You don't have to ask Don Lemon's friends, you moron. It's violating the FACE Act and the KKK Act. Well, Don Lemon's friends don't know what's going on. I don't know. Maybe Report the news. This is why he was charged. Not Don Lemon's friends don't know why he wasn't charged. That's one. Two, as far as, well, Trump doesn't like Don Lemon, and that's why he put him in jail. That's the narrative that they want. They did it with Jim Acosta when they took away his White House press pass after he basically accosted, literally, an intern there, would not give up his microphone, always made a show of himself over and over again. And they want to make him into another Jimmy Kimmel, right? Kimmel, who said that the executioner of Charlie Kirk was actually from the MAGA right, was actually a MAGA supporter. Then some affiliates like Sinclair, like Nexstar, jumped in and said, we don't want to carry this show on our stations anymore. And they pulled him off the air. And then everybody made it out, well, Trump organized this. Trump ordered this. Trump wants Kimmel off the air because Kimmel is critical of him. It's been his show for the last 10 years. And suddenly Trump's going to get the urge to take him off? It's just so stupid. It's not even like good analysis. It is utterly, I guess I can't use this word anymore, but it used to be politically, it's now seen as politically correct to use the word retarded, but that's what this is. That's how bad these arguments are. Certainly for sure. And by the way, CNN put out that long statement that Benny read saying that basically this is an attack on the First Amendment. This is an attack on journalism. Okay, CNN, you fired the guy. You fired Don Lemon. Remember that? You took away his national platform. You took away his First Amendment right. Why don't you hire him back? I mean, let's put it this way. Jeffrey friggin' Toobin, okay? This guy was caught pleasuring himself on a Zoom call as female coworkers were looking on. And that guy even got back on the air after he gave himself the shaft. Get it? All right. And then Stelter was fired from CNN because he's not good at what he does. I can't believe I have to be in the same sentence with this guy sometimes when they say, oh, media critics like Brian Stelter and Joe Concha. Nah, don't do that. No. That's like putting, I don't know, Josh Allen in the same sentence with any of the Jets' last 80 quarterbacks not named Aaron Rodgers. Seriously, no more on that. That's certainly for sure. So we'll see where this goes. But I think in the end, Don Lemon got exactly what he wants, which is to be the victim, which is to play the martyr, and to make this all about an attack on journalism because Trump is a fascist and authoritarian who's trying to control the press. Here's a little newsflash. There has been no president that has been more accessible to the American press than Donald Trump by secretariat proportions. He has answered more questions in 1 year than Joe Biden did in 50 years in being in politics. Infinitely more than Barack Obama, George W. Bush. I could go down the list. So don't say Donald Trump's an attack on the press. He is the person who's holding up whatever is left of the press in terms of their ability to have people watch and listen. And the fact that he answers questions anywhere, anytime, the White House, gaggle outside the White House, Air Force One. Don't tell me he's attacking journalism and the media. This guy has been taking more questions than anyone. And it's, again, a ridiculous and another R-word argument. Anyway, this is Joe Concha. This is the Joe Concha Show. Back with so much more in just a moment. Stick around.
Where liberalism is a no-go. The Joe Concha Show, weekday edition. Sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
New CBS Sunday.
The Grammys, baby!
History will be made.
Live, unfiltered, unexpected.
Woo!
Bigger than ever.
I was a ghost.
Bigger stars, bigger performances. Music's biggest night is getting bigger.
Now
you see what all the hype is about.
Trevor Noah hosts the Grammy Awards live.
Anything is possible.
CBS Sunday and streaming on Paramount Plus.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
All right, welcome back, everybody. So we talked a little about Jimmy Kimmel in the last segment as far as how Don Lemon wants to be the next Jimmy Kimmel in terms of being the martyr of the left who's being taken off the air by Donald Trump because we live in a Soviet-like authoritarian Nazi-type regime and free speech shall not stand. Well, Stephen Colbert, look, is not even remotely trying to be funny anymore, like Kimmel, like Seth Meyers, all the same. Every show is exactly the same, which is why now at this point, a network like CBS has more employees than Colbert has viewers. I mean, Greg Gutfeld is easily doubling him despite having 1/50th the resources in terms of putting together his late night show. You know, Colbert spends $1 million per episode to produce two people talking to each other across a desk. What's cost him $1 million exactly? And the guy wonders why he's getting taken off the air in May. Well, when you lose $40 million for your network, after a while, that's not sustainable from a profitability perspective. And plus, you're just not funny anymore. Not that you ever really were. Here's Colbert comparing the Border Patrol to Nazis, except he says that Nazis were actually better people. You know, the folks that were responsible for the extermination of 6 million Jews. This is supposed to be late night comedy at this point, and it is disturbing. Cut number 1, go.
Bavino went on complaining. Look, Dana, they're trying to portray Border Patrol agents and ICE agents as Gestapo, Nazi, and many other words.
Yes, do not compare ICE or Border Patrol agents to the Nazis. That's an unfair comparison. The Nazis were willing to show their faces.
Oh, I don't know what's worse there. Colbert saying that Nazis were better because they weren't wearing masks, because there wasn't a thing called doxing then, because there was no social media. Well, who cares what the logic is there? But the fact that whoever is in that audience going, woo, woo, any Jews in the audience? Because I'm pretty sure you should be offended by something like that. But that's, again, this guy is going away in 4 months, and it couldn't happen any sooner. I'll bet you CNN ends up signing him, or Netflix will give him some ridiculous deal. And he'll just do the same thing over and over again. And then when Trump is finally off the stage, he'll just refocus his efforts onto J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio or whatever. This is the thing now. He's even thinking of running for president, apparently. Okay, good luck with that. Good luck with that, because you won't have the SEALs in your audience there to clap for you and scream for you anymore, Stephen. You won't have 17 writers to feed you every line that you've ever uttered on television. Actually have to think for yourself and actually take a stand on a few things. But yeah, good. Run, please, by all means. We would love to see that. Meanwhile, I gotta, speaking of liberals who, again, Springsteen I really want to like. I'm from Jersey. Right. I went to go see a Springsteen concert. It was about 20 years ago. So this wasn't like prime Springsteen, born in the USA, 1984 Springsteen. But I always liked his music. You know, I always liked the story about him. Not the greatest voice in the world, but always seemed to be like an authentic blue collar guy, at least when I was growing up. And then, boy, he just began to go off on these tangents during concerts. And then every 4 years, he's got a campaign with a presidential candidate on the Democratic side, even did a concert for Kamala Harris, got paid for it, of course. You know, I think it would be a freebie when you're Springsteen, you're worth $1 billion, that maybe you just want to do the concert for free because you're trying to save democracy. Oh, no, Bruce still has to get paid because there is 127 acres in Colts Neck, New Jersey that ain't going to pay for itself. That's where his estate is down by the Jersey Shore. Anyway, Springsteen, in about 8 seconds, has decided to make an anti-ICE song. And it's just, let's put it this way. This ain't, again, born in the USA. That's certainly for sure. This is cut number 6. Go.
We'll take our stand for this land and the stranger in our midst.
Stranger.
Here in our home they killed and roamed in the winter of 26.
Oh. Yeah, I can see myself going down the Garden State Parkway, heading to the Jersey Shore, listening to that and saying, wow, what could put me in a good mood right now? look, fine. I mean, music's been used in terms of protest for a long time, but that's just ridiculous. I'd rather hear this from Springsteen. Let's go to cut number 7. Go! Yes! Rosalita, jump a little lighter. Rita, come sit by my fire. I don't want to be your love, ain't no lie. Rosie, you're my strong desire. Woohoo! See, that's good music. Go back to that, Bruce, please. Stop depressing us. And again, no one wants to hear your lectures on this stuff anymore, especially when you're behind your gated community, away from all the murderers, rapists, child molesters, sex traffickers that are being arrested by ICE. You can't appreciate it because you live in a billionaire's bubble. This is Joe Concha. This is the Joe Concha Show. Back with so much more, including Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. That's coming up next.
It's the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition.
Joe Concha.
Sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's bring in our VIP guest. He is a legal and political analyst for the Fox News Channel and has been for a long time. Also, the author of Trial of the Century. You could order that on Amazon or wherever you get books now. The Greg Jarrett. That's Greg with 2 G's. TheGregJarrett.com. You want to read Greg's stuff when you're not reading it on FoxNews.com. Greg has yet another great piece out today. Got it out quickly, and good thing he did because this thing, I'm sure, wrote itself. Greg, Don Lemon left his press pass at the door when he joined church storming mob. Greg, thanks for joining us tonight and just break down your story as far as the legal ramifications for Don Lemon, who claims that he was doing it under the guise of the First Amendment and journalism. That just ain't going to fly here, is it?
No, I don't think it will, because calling yourself a journalist, that's not a defense, Joe. I mean, it is your behavior that the law examines, your words, your actions. All of that reveals your intent. And that's why I think he's in criminal jeopardy here, because his own digital videos incriminate him. You take a look closely at some of the footage that he posted online. He was not merely an observer recording this illegal protest inside the church. No, he seemed to be a very active participant who embedded himself with the mob, joined their cause, harassing and tormenting the parishioners. And, you just look at the video, and Lemon obviously knew the protesters' plan to barge into the church, take over the morning prayers. And in fact, he admitted that he had done reconnaissance with them. Some of whom were, members of BLM. And, he's seen there happily handing out donuts and coffee to the demonstrators and vows that in a few moments we're all, I'm going to accompany them on Operation Pull Up, which was invading the church. So then the activists rushed into the church. And Lemon was right alongside them. You can see him as he shoves his microphone in the face of this shocked pastor who was calling the intrusion unacceptable and shameful. And what followed, as I write in my column, wasn't an interview. No, it was a condescending, belligerent dressing down as Lemon lectured the pastor on the Constitution and the First Amendment, utterly unaware of the fact that churches by law are protected venues. And, invading them constitutes trespass, disorderly conduct, disturbing a religious meeting, and importantly, violations of the FACE Act, for which he now stands charged.
And we're talking to Greg Jarrett. I also hear the Klan Act being perhaps applied here as well. What is that exactly, Greg?
Well, the Klan Act of 1871 makes it a crime for anybody to conspire to intimidate and interfere with the civil rights of congregants. And that's an important act. There's also a different statute, 18 U.S.C. 247, and it also prohibits the intentional obstruction of any person's free exercise of religion by force or threat of force. Ultimately, he was charged under the FACE Act as well as, predicate crimes involving civil rights violations. But, Joe, whether Lemon behaved as a journalist, that's actually not relevant.
Relevant, right.
Because churches are private property, not public spaces. Access is restricted. And yes, there's an invitation to the general public to worship, and that does not give rise to a right to come in during services and disrupt them and harass and taunt and torment the congregation, children in tears. So even assuming that Lemon acted as a journalist, he still committed the crime of criminal trespass.
And that's exactly right. And we're talking to Greg Jarrett. I wonder, Greg, as far as all these parents, these parishioners that were there, their kids were down in Sunday school below the services at the time. They didn't know what was going on upstairs. The children didn't. The parents couldn't get to their children as well. Obviously, we saw the harassment, all those videos that are all over social media. Are there civil suits that could be coming Don Lemon's way as well? Because I think that would be much more painful than any criminal sort of charge that may eventually come his way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they should sue the hell out of Don Lemon, because he was part of the mob. Lemon has money. I'm guessing that members of the mob, those who have been criminally charged, don't have money. But that's not as important as the fact of, just defending your own personal rights in a civil lawsuit for money damages, for the harassment and, as I say, the tormenting of these parishioners. I mean, I can imagine that people suddenly converge while you're in prayer and start screaming and yelling at you and threatening you and, trying to tell you you're a horrible person and that you're not a Christian and, you're white. That's another aspect of this. Lemon appeared on this leftist podcast, and he openly described the church members as entitled white supremacists, as if attacking them is therefore justified. It's a despicable thing to say, but it's also suggestive that they were taunted because of their race, which could qualify as a hate crime.
You're right about that. Hey, guys, let's play Cut 16 just to refresh everybody's memory on this one. Don Lemon with Jennifer Welsh, who you think Don Lemon, if you don't think very highly of him, Jennifer Welsh somehow proves that rock bottom has a basement. But this is cut number 16. Go.
And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that, it's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled. And that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy.
I think we just could leave that there because I think you described it perfectly. But a last word on that, Greg, before we just change gears just for a moment. I want to get your thoughts on Donald Trump and his two eldest sons suing the IRS. But final word on this, and then we'll go to our next topic.
Yeah, well, he put the icing on the cake when Lemon then embraced the mantle of victimhood, saying that he's being targeted because he's a gay black man. Please. That defense by Lemon is getting old and tired.
Yes, it is. Plays the race card from the bottom of the deck. And then if that doesn't work, then the gay card, I guess, as well. A lot of cards over there, but none equaling a royal flush. That's certainly for sure. And we're talking to Greg Jarrett. So the president and his two sons, Eric and Don Jr., are suing, along with the Trump Organization, the IRS for $10 billion over their tax returns and their tax information being leaked. Does this case have any legs, in your opinion?
Oh, it absolutely does. The IRS had a duty to safeguard and protect his tax returns from public disclosure. That's confidential, privileged information. It was deliberately leaked by a Booz Allen contractor working for the IRS. The harm was obvious. Damage to his business reputation, his political campaign, his personal reputation, because it portrayed him in a false light that negatively impacted his businesses. The IRS eventually apologized, but it was 4 years too late. Now, whether it's worth $10 billion in damages is hard to say, but it would certainly be a big chunk of change if Trump prevails. So we'll see where it goes.
And he has prevailed to a certain extent, right, with different suits against CBS and ABC, and they've settled before they had to go to court and all the messy disclosure that could come along with that. That's certainly for sure. So we'll have to see where this goes. By the way, the case has been assigned to Judge Kathleen Williams. She was appointed to the U.S. District Court bench by former President Barack Obama. Not sure if that will actually mean anything here. But in August, when Williams did issue a temporary injunction that halted further expansion of the federal government's Florida immigrant detention facility known as Alligator Alcatraz, effectively shutting it down. So a federal appeals court later blocked Williams' ruling, but this could be a judge that isn't exactly favorable to President Trump, Greg.
Yeah, there are a lot of those.
I've heard, as we've seen, certainly for sure. Anyway, Greg, it is a Friday night. We really appreciate you jumping on here, and hopefully you're in warmer pastures than up. Actually, it's cold everywhere, right? So are you down south, and is it cold there like it is here in New York?
I think it's about 45, 48 degrees today, a lot warmer, obviously, than up in New York, where I think it's, like 8 degrees or something like that?
Yeah. Well, the real feels like down to zero. It's so cold, my kids said, can we go skiing? I said, it's too cold to go skiing, which is kind of an oxymoron, but that's where we're at this point. But you made the right move getting out of here. That's certainly for sure. 48 would feel like 78 to me right now. But again, enjoy the weekend, and I'll see you at a green room at Fox News real soon, hopefully.
Okay, pal. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Greg. That is a great Greg Jarrett, everybody. And I bring him on because he just lays everything out like that favorite professor that you may have had in college that, can take a very complicated subject and then makes it very easy to understand. And there's an A+ waiting on the other side. Anyway, A+ work from Greg Jarrett. This is Joe Concha. We wrap up the Joe Concha Show. This puppy up in just a moment.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition.
Joe Concha.
Sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
Welcome back, everybody. So, we've talked about this before as far as, why would Democrats, when it's political suicide, allow 12 to 15 million people to come into the country illegally without any vetting whatsoever? Oh, maybe so they could eventually get driver's licenses and get free health care and get, basically put into the system as far as schools and hospitals and all this stuff that makes them basically a citizen. And then eventually, they're here and they're doing great work as far as contributing to society. So let's just allow them to vote. That seemed to be the game plan. And here you have Senator Mark Warner of the Commonwealth of Virginia. He wants to make sure that ICE or any federal authorities are nowhere near voting locations, because if ICE starts arresting people and starts to find illegals there, well, that's not good for Democrats as far as illegals not being able to vote. Like, it literally doesn't really say the quiet part out loud, but basically does here. This is cut number 13. Go.
And one of the things that I think we need to make sure that is included in any kind of ICE reform is we don't want these roving patrols of ICE agents suddenly showing up at polling stations.
Why not?
Primaries or general elections. Oh. You may have a major vote in Virginia about redistricting. That's got to be a reform as well. The level of intimidation that the feds could bring on voters all across the country, if it doesn't worry you, it should.
So is that on the table right now?
Wait. If ICE is there, then that's only because illegals are there. Why would illegals be online to vote in a primary or general election? And meanwhile, the FBI raided the offices of the Fulton County election offices. Why would they want to do that? Oh, right. 2020, they're looking to see if there was any fraud there. Fulton County is basically Atlanta and Georgia. Joe Biden, scare quotes, won Georgia by about 11,000 votes in 2020. And it was odd because if you were watching on election night, Trump had a huge lead in the Peach State. And then suddenly Biden, through all these mail-in votes, came back. But the night of election night, when they were counting up ballots, suddenly a pipe burst and they had to stop everything and couldn't come back until the morning. A pipe burst. Anybody ever look into that, by the way? Because at first I was maybe naive enough to believe that, well, Democrats will go far to keep power or retain power or gain power, but they're really going to try to, rig votes, rig an election. And after everything you've seen over the last 4 years, are they capable of doing something like that? Would there be no remorse, no shame? Means to an end kind of thought process? You can start to entertain that thought very, very easily. That's certainly for sure. Anyway, let's go to the fact that we have now moderates running Virginia and New Jersey. That's what we were told during the campaigns in 2025, those gubernatorial campaigns, that Abigail Spanberger, for example, she ran on affordability and making things more affordable for Virginians in her state. And now, within like 5 minutes after taking office, here's all the things she's going to raise taxes on. It's worth replaying. This is cut number 2. Go.
Here's a list of the many tax increases and proposals Democrats in Virginia are considering passing. They include additional local sales tax in all Virginia counties and cities, new personal property tax on electric leaf blowers and electric landscaping equipment, large employer tax, gun and ammunition tax, new income tax brackets, a delivery tax. This would hit you if you make an order on Amazon, Uber Eats, or an order that includes UPS, FedEx delivery, etc. here in Northern Virginia. There's also a tax they're looking at for events, concerts, an investment income tax, storage facility tax, gym membership tax, dog walking tax, dog grooming tax, counseling tax, digital personal property tax, new car taxes and highway use fees, an increase in the hotel tax here in Arlington, statewide speed cameras. Now, these aren't taxes, but they would include more fines for some drivers, dry cleaning tax, home repair tax, and a vehicle repair.
Holy God. Virginia just became like a really, really bad version of California, and California is already a really bad version of itself. And again, this person ran on making things more affordable. She's going to tax. You hear that report? It lasted 1 minute and 2 seconds. He listed at least 24 things that will now be more expensive if you live in Virginia. Oh man, you guys are in Virginia if you're listening. Oh, you're already yearning for the Glenn Youngkin days. That's certainly for sure. But again, Spanberger, just like Mikey Sherrill here in New Jersey, ran as moderates. And now, here's Mikey, by the way, talking about how she's going to track ICE in New Jersey. Sounds like Governor Walz with blonde hair. This is cut number 9. Go.
I've already met with AG. We are putting out information on helping New Jerseyans know their rights. We are not going to allow any ICE raids to be staged from state properties. And we are also going to be standing up a portal so people can upload all their cell phone videos and alert people. Like if you see an ICE agent in the street, get your phone out.
Yes. We want to know. Alert people like who?
They will pick people up. They will not tell us who they are. Right. They will not tell us if they're here legally. They won't check. They'll pick up American citizens. They picked up a 5-year-old child. We want documentation, and we are going to make sure we get it.
What a liar. Right. What a liar. The 5-year-old they picked up was abandoned by his illegal dad who had committed crimes, and then the choice was leave the kid in minus 10-degree temperatures in Minneapolis or take him into an ICE facility so he could at least be warm and they could find another family member. What a liar. And by the way, she's like, we could track ICE and then you could warn people if they're coming. What people, Mikey? Governor Mikey? I'm curious. Oh, that's right. Illegals in the state. Again, murderers, rapists, child traffickers, child molesters, sex traffickers. That's who Mikey Sherrill is protecting. So much for the moderate running New Jersey here. And then, by the way, if you want to know the whole end game, let's go to cut 10, because this is what ultimately Democrats want to do. Remember when they wanted to disband police departments, defund police? Well, it's back, except ICE and Border Patrol. Just fill in the blank. Cut number 10. Go.
Yes, dismantle ICE, but also the Border Patrol, also the agency that looks over citizenships and asylum. All of it needs to be dismantled and rebuilt so people are not terrorized by their own governmental agency.
And believe me, they'll do it. If Democrats gain back full control, like they had in 2020, by the way, they had the Senate, they had the House, they had the White House. They will this time succeed because there's no Joe Manchin, no Kristen Sinema around in the Senate to block efforts to disband the Electoral College, to expand the Supreme Court, to add 4 Democratic senators to the United States Senate by making Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. states. They will expand the Supreme Court to look like a football roster. They will do all these things. And yes, they will disband ICE and Border Patrol to go right back to the good old days of 2021 through 2024, where another 30 million people can come into the country illegally and destroy all of our social services when it comes to hospitals, education, police departments, and local budgets in general. Anyway, this has been the Joe Concha Show. Kind of a dark way to end on a Friday night, so sorry about that, guys. Why don't we play this clip on the way out? This is Scott Bessent on when Donald Trump calls him, and let's just say he's not a 9-to-5 guy. Cut number 11, go.
President Trump sets the tone. I'll get a call. Scott, I didn't wake you, did I? No, sir. I'm always up at 1:52 on Tuesday. So, like, you got to keep up with him. And like I said, it's an honor to serve.
Yeah, you can't put the phone on vibrate. It's got to be on when you work for the 47th president. Okay, we're going to end it on that note. This has been Joe Concha, the Joe Concha Show. We're back at 9 p.m. on Monday or whenever you listen to this show. It could be anytime, anywhere. It's the beauty of modern technology. Until then, got 2 words for you. Bye-bye. Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially healthcare. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.